Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. A horrible tragedy took place recently, and in that tragedy, we found hundreds and thousands of the people losing their lives. I'm referring to the earthquake that struck Turkey and Syria, and India's quick response to the humanitarian crisis reinforces what has been a pattern for the last 2 decades as far as India's international obligation and humanitarian work is concerned. But does this aid to Turkey and Syria mark the coming of age of India's humanitarian assistance? Is it the Indian avatar of US aid? Because US aid used to be, and even now to a great extent, moment the tragedy was there, it was there. And now India is replacing it. And looking at the work with the planes, NDRF, it marks that a new era has been established in providing assistance. And India has quietly become a net provider of development assistance and has become a first responder in many humanitarian crises. But at the same time, it's maintaining its individuality and its declining offers of overseas aid. India's capacity in the humanitarian assistance is unparalleled, and the disaster relief it is providing, HADR, as well as executes development projects far beyond its borders, far beyond all the parts of the world, which was something only the developed countries have been demonstrating in the past. So it clearly shows that India has reached that stage where it can say it is the helper, a friend, and as Turkey said, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Now there's a difference with the USAID. USAID was always there with strings attached. They were social, they were political, mostly political. Even they wanted to provide assistance, most of the time they'll say, well, you will hire, say, purchase things only from USA. They were providing free, at cheaper rates. For example, they were giving maize to India, and that maize, according to one of the reports, was unfit for the pigs to eat. But maybe the Indians at that time were below American pig standards. But India's response has been no strings attached and it has not differentiated between friends and enemies. Pakistan suffered, India offered it immediately, without any hesitation. Turkey has been the most vocal critic of India, and yet India was the first country to send it. It has a very responsive and capable armed forces team with an experienced pool and capacity to respond in emergencies. And not only that, but it sustains development needs. It's not a one shot affair. It continues, and as a matter of fact, it was seen that they were responsible, the Indian team, for rescuing a number of people who had been buried. But if India has to live up to its aim, then it has to do something more. It has to consider considering a professional humanitarian agency. At present, it is all government controlled. Nothing wrong with that, as a matter of fact. But there's a caveat. Many times, The mission loses its importance if it's constrained by red tape. And red tape is a very normal thing in bureaucratic setup. This time, the aid provided to Turkey and Syria was being seen at the prime minister level. So if India has to live up to the potential, what it must do is to have a professional, independent, autonomous humanitarian agency. Russia has, sorry, UK has it, Japan has it, USA has it, even Russia has it. But then Russia is all government control. Now, earthquake in Turkey and Syria, they are basically a test case of India's humanitarian resistance and disaster relief power, what we call HADR, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. And I would say that India has been successful in meeting up the task. Nevertheless, is it again a one shot affair? Now, power is what is power today? Soft power, especially humanitarian power, is the ability to create and sustain outcomes. And the outcome here would be a saving the lives of the people, providing them food, clothing, help them even in housing. So it basically boils down to three variables: capability, which India has shown it has, capacity, and credibility. At present, in this, India has proved that it has the capability, it has the capacity, and it has credibility. Otherwise, even the critics of India would not be thanking India. Now, secondly, air power is always the first responder. Let's not forget it. Air power, air force, air medical aid, disaster relief funds, all these are the first responders. And the question is whether its performance in the three indices affords India the position of a regional HADR provider. No, I would go further. Not a regional, but I would say a global HADR provider, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. First, let's take the capability of India. Air power of any nation is dependent on diverse factors. Essentially, it's a combined weight of its military and civilian assets. There cannot be a line dividing military and civilian, they had to be coordinated. Now, Indian Air Force transport aircraft is well endowed with airlift assets that would be envy of many nations. That goes without saying. Now, what is its capability? Indian Air Force has got 11 C-15 Global Masters. It has 12 C-130J Super Hercules. It has around 8 Illusion 76, and it has 90 odd AN-32 aircraft that gives it immense capability for transoceanic as well as short haul tactical aircraft lifting, transportation of medication, of food, of manpower. Now, this Global Masters and Super Hercules and Illusions and AN-32 is a combined strength of Indian Army. then they are testament to the foresight of the Indian Air Force and national leaders since India became independent, and a paperwork of acquiring these assets was started. And that is, problematic. So the capability undoubtedly is there, and that capability and that capacity is undeniable. Now, the million-dollar question is, should India be selective in providing aid at a global level? This time it has proved that even the carping critics that the much needed aid. And I think that's a very positive thing India is doing. Why? Because you cannot differentiate between human beings. Any human being who needs help should get help. And when a natural disaster is there, you cannot pick up that nationality, the religion, or any other divisive mark. And India has proved, it has proved now, it has proved earlier at the time of 2004 tsunami, and at many other places, flooding of Pakistan. Offer was there, Pakistan refused to accept it. So, this global help which India is giving is a hallmark of a country which excels in soft power. And India's soft power capabilities are increasing now. You can be a global leader in diverse manners. You can be a global leader militarily over our people. But then that's not sustaining, that's a waste. You can be a global leader in material wealth, but if the material wealth is not put to the humanitarian use, it doesn't help. It's a concept of trust issue, of the values. Values of life, values that show your adherence to your culture as well as the philosophy that permeates. Now, the Indian culture, which considers the whole world as yourself, as a family, is the binding factor and the guiding force that they say. And the benefit to it is there is no material benefit, no, but the goodwill that you earn and the blessings that you get, the country, the respect you have, and it imparts a huge power to your passport. That means the people who visit, the moment they say, well, we're India, and they'll think, oh, yes, you are the person. You belong to that country, which is a real friend, because a friend in need is a friend indeed. Now, this use of soft power is coupled with a sense of responsibility as well. And that is the way this time India acted with elasticity, with urgency that the situation needed is should not be one shot affair. It should be the sustaining policy and it should be sustainable itself. How can you sustain yourself? A, that the culture of health is created. Secondly, the culture of empathy pervades all considerations. And you have to be materially strong. The way Indian Air Force and disaster teams acted showed a dovetailing of the capabilities and the capacity. Capacity, if it's not used capability, is meaningless. And if you don't have the capacity and the capability, then it doesn't work. India has all the three major ingredients of power. It's using them. And that's why I say India is having a new vision and it's having a new picture to project. The picture of a humanitarian nation that takes care, India, the country that takes care of all the other afflicted, miserable victims of natural or man made disasters. Long live the new avatar of USAID, minus all the political strings that were binding USA. Thank you.